Good morning, good afternoon, depends where you are. Welcome to the webinar on community protocols and associated traditional knowledge. We are going to maybe wait a minute more, but while we wait for more attendees to join us, maybe we are going to introduce ourselves in case you haven't followed the previous webinars. So yeah, and if you have followed, you will know our names better. So I'm Beatriz Gomez. I work on the Nagoya Protocol on access and benefit sharing, particularly on national reports and assessment and review, and I will be guiding you today through this webinar. And I'm going to pass the mic to Matt to introduce himself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Matthew Diaz. I'm also a program officer here at the Secretariat in the ABS unit. I work a lot with the ABS Clearinghouse, among other ABS issues. Gisela?
Hi, everyone. My name is Gisela Talamas, and I am the program assistant for the Access and Benefit Sharing Unit, and I also mostly work with the ABS Clearinghouse.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nusrat Farah, and I also work as a program management assistant in the ABS unit. Welcome to the webinar.
So yeah, this is the third of the webinars that we have been doing this week on different areas for the small grant project. So we are going to recall that the first day on Tuesday we had information sharing systems. If you have missed that one, the recording and the PowerPoint will be made available in the website. Yesterday we talked about ABS procedures, the expression of interest to work with the German hub on the Nagoya protocol, and as well, if you missed it, everything will be made available and the website is there for you to consult. And yeah, today we have the community protocols. Also, we will do this in Spanish this afternoon at 2 in Montreal time, and tomorrow in French. So if you think you are in the wrong language, you can maybe join the other webinars as well, and please share it in your networks. So today, we are going to go introduce the capacity building and development program and what are the requirements and what can you do to be part of it and apply. We will also talk about the content, what are we trying to achieve, so the community protocols, what is a community protocol, why it's important, and go also through the role of countries for the implementation of the IPLC's provisions of the protocol, so how all these work together. We will also share some guidance and resources, and we will have some Q&A at the end, some question and answer. But if during the process you want to go asking questions on the chat, some of my colleagues might be answering them, or we can also take them together at the end. So as I was saying, everything will be recorded and everything will be made available on the website page. So don't worry about it. I know that you all want to come back to it after the webinar. So why are we doing this? And I mean, just to get an overview of what we have been doing at the Secretariat level on terms of capacity building on access and benefit sharing. So before COP15, before the adoption of the GBF, and since the adoption of the Nagoya Protocol in 2010, the Secretariat was working more on promoting ratifications at the beginning and after implementation of the Nagoya Protocol, setting up measures, helping countries with setting up institutions to implement the protocol. So getting ready to be able to do ABS. Without ratification measures and institutions, you cannot actually have ABS agreements and you cannot have benefit sharing. So that was what we are calling the getting ready for ABS. However, with the GBF, and also given that some time has passed the adoption of the Nagoya Protocol, like maybe 15 years now, now we are focusing more on like what we need to do to unlock the benefit sharing, to actually increase the benefit share according to Goal C, and working with countries that already have done those preliminary steps to do little actions that can unlock benefit sharing, how we can make it happen. So we are more focusing on operationalization, on sharing experiences on how countries do like things like granting permits, and more the nitty-gritty of doing and implementing, and what practical actions can make our work more efficient, so we can really achieve what we were meant to do, that is the having benefits shared from genetic resources and associated traditional knowledge. So this is the context of why we are working during this biennium. We have this program to operationalize the legal framework and systems. And all of this is based on the outcomes of a global workshop that we held last year in October in Bonn. And the workshop was very useful, and it helped on the sharing of experiences and sharing tips and checklist on things to do to make ABS happen in practice. I invite you to consult the report of the workshop. Includes very useful information and conclusions if you were not able to attend. And this program is part of the capacity building. It's inserted in the capacity building and development action plan for the Nagoya Protocol that was adopted in last COPMOP. The action plan includes appendixes and annexes that has key areas for capacity building, activities, indicative activities that you could do to increase capacity in these different areas. So this can be a very useful guide also when you are thinking about the small projects to submit the small projects. Ideas for helping is like a guidance and a menu that will adapt to your priorities and to your interest. So this capacity building program is thanks to the generous support from Denmark and the Japan Biodiversity Fund. And well, I don't know if there is any donors here as well in this call, but I hope that we can get more funding so we can fund more projects. So this is something I want to mention later as well. So what is the objective? The objective is, this is our way of trying to contribute to goal C, so the increase of benefits, and the target 13 of the GBF. Everything that we are doing now has to be focused on the GBF and the implementation, and I mean, this is our start guide. So we want to support parties to the protocol to make their existing ABS measures and institutional arrangement operational and facilitate ABS to happen in practice. So with this, we are providing these small grants to eligible parties, indigenous peoples and local communities, and also organizations to do projects in these three components. In our case, as we say, this one today, we are going to talk about the community protocols and associated traditional knowledge. So who can apply? This is a question, there is a lot of interest of who can apply. So IPLCs organizations can apply to these grants independently from something else. If you are an organization of IPLCs, you can apply for the grant. Also parties to the Nagoya Protocol that are ODA recipients. My colleagues are going to send the list of those countries that are considered that can receive ODA. This is because donor requirements. So this is important. And also relevant organizations that are implementing projects that benefits parties to the Nagoya Protocol or IPLCs, but parties of the Nagoya Protocol that are ODA recipients. So this could also work on this regard. Something important to have into account is that all projects must be completed by the end of 2026. So these have to be small, doable projects. What are the criteria for selection? As I'm saying there, these are not requirements, it's just things that we will take into account, like to decide which projects will get the funding. So projects need to have, for this area in particular, it's very important that it's a full engagement or are led by IPLCs or relevant IPLCs organization, which is, you can imagine, it's an obvious requirement. After, if there is the project involves more than one eligible party or more IPLCs or more organizations, this is like a plus. So more engagement, and if the project enables a wider conversation, a dialogue, this is like something, is an advantage. Any project that fosters synergies or joint work between different government institutions, between countries, IPLCs, related stakeholders, women and youth is also important. So the level of engagement with different groups relevant to the project, of course, you don't have to force it, but something that is relevant to the project, this is an advantage. Of course, have to produce a concrete output and a lasting outcome. This is whatever you propose should have like a concrete something to show at the end. If they propose efficient and effective strategies and approaches, this is like the best way of doing a small project. So as I said, they are small, so they have to be really like thought through that they are going to produce something with, and it's a best strategy to achieve the objective. If, of course, you can use these small grants as part of a bigger project. So you could have like some co-funding or a tentative co-funding, so the outcomes, the lasting outcomes could be more guaranteed if it's inserted in a bigger, in another project. So you could use also this as a leverage to get funding from somewhere else. So this is something we take into account. And it's also important that whatever you are proposing is included in your plan. So if it's a planning of a country level, that is included in MBSAPs or in work on Article 8J. So it's something that your country considers is a priority. If it's something more at community level, something that is a priority for the community or is inserted in their vision of what they want to achieve. So everything is part of a plan. Of course, if you want also lasting outcomes, things have to come together. What funding we are looking at? This, as I say, this is a small funding, and we were thinking something around 20,000 for single country projects. Single country projects, if they are IPLCs, like smaller dimensions. That's what you have to apply some of these in different contexts, like if it's an IPLC project together with a country, that would be at 20,000 US dollars. If you are involved in more countries or IPLCs in different territories, that would be more like up to 35. And for regional or global projects would be up to 50,000. So depends of the level of engagement that you have and the dimensions of the project, the funding would increase. As we say, like you could use this funding to leverage from other sources or be part of a bigger project. So you can see how you make this work now in a way that you can multiply the effects and the impact. The idea is the small actions with big impact. That's what we are looking for. So if how it happens once if you are selected for if you're sorry, let's go back. Countries or IPLCs or organizations can submit a concept note. This concept note is like more basic and just to have like the ideas and the partners clear. And based on that and following the criteria that we have explained, we will select few projects where we will start developing project documents together with the CBD. So we will go into more specifics on timelines and deliverables, and there will have to be a final project document submitted and a financial report. So there is all these requirements that that will happen later, like when we advance on the project development together. So applicants must commit the time and effort necessary. There, we might have many applications. It's important that really, if you are applying and you are getting selected, you really commit the time and the effort to make a high quality output and complete it on time. All the relevant project information will be published on the ABS Clearinghouse, and also the lessons learned from your particular project will be shared with different with participants and at workshops. So all the beneficiaries of of this category of work will also have opportunities to have online meetings to share experiences and the lessons learned, and also in-person meetings that we will be clear later on. You will be able to share your experience with other IPLCs and countries interested in the same topic. So it's not that you are only benefit at local level, but the idea is that all what you learn and what have you done will benefit at a global level and to everybody. So even though your country or your project is not selected, you will be able to learn from the experiences of others and advance together on this field. So for applying, you have in the, it was in the notification share and also on the website, there is a project proposal form that needs to be filled. This, for example, if a country is involved on this project, will need approval of the ABS national focal point, and depends of the partners. I mean, if you have different partners involved, you will need like a kind of a proof of a commitment of the different partners. This is a normal process. The deadline is the 30th of May. So you have still some time, you have some time to reflect, and also if you have questions, you can always ask us so we can help you to answer the questions that you might have. So this is just about the, this was about the grants, how to apply it, and the requirements. So now I wanted to share with you a little bit of kind of the theoretical background to give you some ideas as well of what type of projects you could submit. I mean, these are just ideas. It's just to spark conversation and to maybe help us all to be in the same page of what we are trying to achieve with this, so you get the vision that and we all can work together in the same direction. So this time we are focusing on community protocols and associated traditional knowledge. But why community protocols are important? If we want benefit sharing from traditional knowledge or genetic resources, if it's applicable, coming back to indigenous peoples and local communities, we need to establish a dialogue between three types of people, of users. So there has to be a very clear and established dialogue between indigenous peoples and local communities, countries that they have their obligations under the Nagoya Protocol, and users. You need the engagement of these three types. If you don't have the engagement of users, there is no benefit sharing. If you don't have the engagement for countries, you have a very small, you have more limited possibilities of having benefits really coming back to you. All these three pieces are meant to work together, and the dialogue between the three of them has to be clearly established and has to be very clear as well if we want to have the benefits coming back. So, like going into the details of this dialogue and why community protocols are important. Basically, all IPLCs have, I mean, all groups have different internal processes, customary laws, ways of doing things, different languages. If countries in ABS, there is different systems. When you talk about indigenous peoples and local communities, the variety multiplies exponentially. Yeah, in one country, you could have many different ways of doing things. These internal processes and customary laws sometimes are only known for the community, or they are more known or less known, but the community protocol is a way of translating these internal processes that sometimes is not even spelled out in a way that can help communicate with also countries and users. So it's a way of putting in clear in terms that can be widely understood what how to go about access and benefit sharing for a particular community, or how to go about generally manage genetic resources or traditional knowledge. Could be more broader or with less scope. So these community protocols becomes the kind of could be the tool to help make this dialogue between the users, the countries, and the IPLCs. Because also countries, according to Article 12 of the Nagoya Protocol, they have the obligation to take into account the community protocols and customary laws of IPLCs when they implement the Nagoya Protocol for associated traditional knowledge. So the fact of having these community protocols is helps also countries to take them into account. And also countries have to support their development because it's considered by the Nagoya Protocol that the community protocols is an essential tool in making this dialogue happen. From the other side, users need to know how to go about respecting PIC, prior informed consent, or prior informed consent. Well, now I forgot. And the engagement and involvement of the IPLCs, and they need the information also to be clear for them. What do they need to do? How to go about? Who are the authorities? All of this can be spelled out on the community protocol. So that becomes the tool, and that's why we are focusing right now on it to be able to unlock the benefits. So this is the ABS flow that we were working on with the workshop, and now I find it very useful to explain things. So if we go through the ABS process that needs to happen, so if we want benefit sharing, all the steps that need to happen, so really the benefits come back, we have the chain is like this. A user, for example, could want to access associated traditional knowledge or genetic resources from IPLCs. First thing is if they are aware of the obligations that they have ABS obligations. If they are not aware, and they will continue doing their business, and this becomes already like a problem because getting to after to be able to bring the user to compliance, identify the user that has been non-compliant, sometimes it's more difficult than making sure that the users are really aware of their obligations. So this is a precondition that everybody will need to work together to make sure that it happens. But imagine that they are aware of their ABS obligations and want to apply. What do they do? First of all is to gather information. How do you gather information from if you want to access associated traditional knowledge from an IPLC? Or so the main source, the main place where all the information is contained and should be easy and is a one-stop shop is the ABS clearinghouse. If gathering information of how to comply with the ABS requirements is difficult to find, is in hiding in websites, has to already go to ask to a particular place in a particular community, things could get distorted and lost in the moment that things become difficult. But if things are easy and everything is clearly explained on the ABS clearinghouse, for example, you are already gaining the engagement of the user because they see it like something easier to do, like somehow, okay, the steps are clear. Let's go to continue following through the ABS process. But for doing that, for finding that information, this has to be published on the clearinghouse. If sometimes they are published in a project website, for example, community protocol, sometimes they are in a project website of an organization, not even in the country website. This is difficult for a user to find. I mean, how do you research which IPLCs are really ready for business somehow on ABS? You know, like they have it all spelled out. So the place is the ABS clearinghouse. And it should include information on community protocols, and it should include also information from the countryside on how to access. Because once that they start operating and trying to get an ABS agreement and PIC and MAT, there is a lot of different ways that countries are doing the next step. That is like the process for application, the grant of permit, the PIC and MAT, what is the role of the CNA, when IPLCs come in, when do they don't, you know, like this relationship of in the blue the blue squares down, what is the role of the country and what is the role of IPLCs in each of these steps. And countries do these things very differently. So if we go back to where the people engage in this dialogue that needs to happen for benefits to come back, IPLCs that want to participate and benefit from ABS, if my first recommendation would be that they engage in the process of developing a community protocol. If you want to participate and you want, because you also can decide not to participate in the process. I mean, each one has the rights to decide how they want to go about access and benefit sharing. But if you want to be part of it, the community protocol could be the first step to engage. Because also in the process of developing the community protocol, you can get an understanding within your community of how you want to go about it. So it serves as the platform for an internal dialogue and agreeing on and getting a common vision of how do you want to go about this specific aspect that is ABS. So it helps for the internal process and getting the community engaged and in the same page. We were looking at resources, and I found this. There was this submission for assessment and review that the Natural Justice, the ABS Capacity Development Initiative, and the NGO CESAREM from Benin, they put together for assessment and review, and I thought it was a very useful way of collecting lessons learned. It's a very good document, so I just put here a few points, but I encourage you to read it. So for developing the community protocols, one of the suggestions that they say that is very useful to be able to engage the community that is answering to a need or identified challenge. Because when we do things sometimes on the abstract, on the theoretical level, the motivation might be different than when you really you got a user asking for access and somehow it triggers a full chain of needs. So it's good to have it to develop it with a reason, with a created already need or demand. Also, that is a valuable idea, not to only about ABS and the Nagoya Protocol. This is a very restricted area. So just to include it in a wider conversation about the community resources and knowledge in general, and as part of it, include ABS. About the process, I think this is obvious. I'm probably preaching to the choir, but the process should be designed and developed by the community. And the input should be from the broadest sample of community members to get like this, we are all on the same page. Should include customary or other community decision-making institutions. So everything has to be integrated on the already existing practices and customary laws of the community. And it's important to have some discussion about governance structures, how you're going to also go about granting access, for example. And there's one of the things that they also mention is sometimes there is a lot of questions of who and what constitutes the community. What do we understand as the community in itself for their specific context? Timeframes will vary on the local context, and one of the things is that, of course, and this is something for you to consider when you are thinking about the small grants, is that the process of developing the community protocol itself can be a lengthy process and could involve different stages. So, for example, if you think that for this, in the context of this project, doing the whole community protocol is going to, for respecting the timelines, is not going to be able to be done for 2026, the end of 2026. Maybe you can discuss some of the stages, preliminary stages, or what is it adapts, because also putting pressure on the internal processes because the project of the CBD, I don't know. Anyway, think it wisely. And the process is as important as the product. So that's as we say, this process of engagement is already rich enough, and the product helps, but the process is useful already for the community. Outside support, this is about engagement of organizations and countries, and these dialogues can help, can facilitate some process, can provide some technical input where ABS is very technical and sometimes it helps, and some legal understanding and assist with the drafting. But everything, whatever you are thinking, the empowerment of the community should be key of the outcomes. Of course, there might be need for training and information sharing, particularly related to ABS. So a mix between technicality, but also empowerment that is not just like imposed from the outside. The role of government. If we don't have this dialogue with the government, we are not getting to this benefit sharing. We need to work with the governments so they can help us and we can help them. So informing and involving government institutions can ensure the buy-in, because after you will need the government also to help the ABS to happen, and also facilitate the official recognition of community protocols. And if you want to integrate the community work, as we're saying, like the community protocols in the ABS legislation of the country, you need to have this dialogue. And after, they can also play a role to ensure the respect of the peak and the fair process format. So it's important. And with this, it leads me to the role of countries, because countries as well here, they can apply for some small grants to work on their side of the dialogue. Article 12, and probably you all know it by heart, but sometimes I even like to remember all the things that you have there because it's super rich. Everything, implementation of the Nagoya Protocol has to take into account IPLC's community protocols and procedures. So this is already helping doing this conversation, as we were saying before. Also, parties with the participation of IPLCs need to establish mechanisms to inform potential users of ATK about their obligations. They need the awareness raising, they need to play a role of making your work as IPLCs like reflected in the national legislation and in the mechanism to inform, like, for example, the Bills Clearinghouse. And parties shall endeavor to support community protocols, among other things, like minimum requirements format, model contractual clauses. These also can be all part of the community protocols. So there is different articles that apply that are related to IPLCs within the Nagoya Protocol, and that parties have obligations included on them that relates to IPLCs. So would be Article 6 about access to genetic resources when this is applicable in your country, access to TK, transboundary cooperation, compliance, awareness raising, and there is also obligations on capacity building. So I wanted to highlight here, as we wanted to promote a conversation between different countries and IPLCs, the importance of Article 11 on transboundary cooperation. Because in the case of traditional knowledge, to say, like, I feel like I'm saying things that you already know, but traditional knowledge can be shared by IPLCs from different countries and genetic resources as well. So maybe this is a good opportunity to get together few countries or IPLCs from different countries to work, to cooperate, and maybe do joint community protocols and looking how you are going to do this cooperation between different countries. So this is a very key article, and if you have ideas on working on this would be very valuable, as we don't have so many of these experiences out there. And here I wanted to share some of the experiences from implementing the IPLC's provisions of the Nagoya Protocol. That these are all experiences. They come from the interim national report, so it's 2018 already, but still there is a wealth of information on how countries are doing things. If you're a country are questioning, please give me some ideas. So assessment and review, in the decision, the first assessment and review, that was decision MP3/1, identified some challenges. The area of associated traditional knowledge and IPLC's provisions is one of the areas that was lagging behind, including you have compliance and monitoring and checkpoints, like it's less implemented. This area also was less implemented and having less experience. So some of the challenges that we're identifying was countries were saying they don't have clarity about indigenous peoples and local communities in their country and their rights at national level. They had difficulties in defining the different groups of IPLCs, how they were organized and with whom to talk. And also about linking the traditional knowledge with the holder of such knowledge. So there is already like some preliminary challenges there, and maybe some small actions could be, for example, directed to some of these things that are the basic requirements to start working with the IPLCs of your countries. If you don't know who they are, like we are having, you cannot even start doing your job. There was a lot, some conversation and differences of ways of approaching the role of the competent national authority for PIC and MAT for access to traditional knowledge and genetic resources when held by IPLCs. So, for example, I'm putting here a few examples, but just to illustrate that you could do things in many different ways, and you should talk with your IPLCs to find the best way that suits your country. So, for example, DRC, access is granted by the CNA, so the actual access, but PIC is required before. So there is like two levels of kind of PIC or granting access. Finland, for example, in other way, the Sami parliament manages a TK database, and applications go from the CNA that notifies the parliament, but after the mutual agree terms are with the parliament and approved by the CNA. So there is like a conversation. This is a very summarized way, but you can check, for example, if you are interested on this, you go to the Finland national report, the interim national report, and you can check how it works. But there is a conversation back and forth between IPLCs or IPLCs institutions and the CNA in the different levels. And in Bhutan, for example, is the national focal point who obtains the PIC of the IPLCs. So it's not the user, but the national focal point. So yeah, food for thought. Institutional setting, how you make the effective participation and involvement, how do you create this dialogue between countries and IPLCs that is so important? If not, like you cannot actually implement the Nagoya Protocol efficiently. You can create national mechanisms for participation or representation, also coordination and institution building within and among IPLCs. So you can create new mechanisms, you can use existing institutions by IPLC and build into them, but there has to be a representative way of engaging at national level. For supporting the development of community protocols, there is also some different examples. For example, Benin. They created, they were supporting the development of different community protocols. I think the NGO Cesaren that, like the ones that they submitted the lessons learned, but they also created a model community protocol. Is it useful or not? I'm not just, like these are things that could be done, maybe are useful to do, or maybe less useful, but options that you have as a country. Bhutan, the national focal point supports and facilitates the development of community protocols. Bhutan, the national focal point, looks like very engaged in this dialogue. And Madagascar supported the development of 10 community protocols. One day would be super interesting to know their experiences as well. There is also something to consider, the legal recognition. So we were saying that these community protocols should be taken into account when you're implementing the Nagoya Protocol. How do they reflect on their legal system? So some countries, for example, like Benin, Cameroon, or Kenya, they recognize customary law in general laws. They have a general recognition, and that's how they do it. Others, like Bhutan, Ethiopia, India, or Peru, they recognize it as part of the ABS measures. The ABS measures themselves have a clause recognizes the customary laws or the community protocols. And the community protocols, for example, are recognized in ABS measures in Benin. So these are things also to think. And after there is also, as I say, Article 12 has this obligation of putting in place mechanisms to inform potential users of ATK about their obligations. So how to do this? For example, you could develop a specific ABS procedures for ATK that also includes how all this dialogue goes, how the interaction when IPLCs are coming in, what are the community protocols. You could recognize the different roles and institutions. So this is a work in itself, more than just what is the ABS legal measure addressing ATK, more how step by step what a user needs to do, or what happens step by step when they want to access ATK. That is sometimes very different from genetic resources. So, and the main mechanism would be the ABS clearinghouse. If they find the information there, it's like, yeah, it's the one-stop shop. More easy for users to find all they need. So, yeah, as we were saying, this is the dialogue that has to happen. But of course, we cannot do this without the users. Without the users, we don't have benefit sharing. We would have other things. All the actions that we had been discussing are good for many different reasons. Like you are empowering IPLCs, you are empowering their rights on the ABS measures, but without the users, we don't have the benefits that are coming back. So, as we were saying, what the users, we go back to this flow, what the users want easy information on how to comply. They want certainty, they want to understand what they need to do, and we need to try to make it easy for them for associated traditional knowledge and genetic resources that are held by IPLC. Easy to understand what they need to do. I'm not saying that they shouldn't pay benefits or they shouldn't engage on conversations, but they need to, to get information shouldn't be very complicated. And that's why it should be included in the ABS clearinghouse, and also with a vision of users. Like as we were saying, these are tools that we are using, the community protocols. We can use different tools depending on the purpose. Sometimes maybe you can have a community protocol that is for helping the community to agree to something, and maybe you can put something on the ABS clearinghouse that is meant for users. You need to understand what is the goal that you're trying to achieve, and the information on the clearinghouse is for helping users to comply with your customary laws and with your rules. So project ideas. I'm going to throw a few ideas there, but I'm sure you have plenty of them. The idea is that we try to do small actions that unlock benefit sharing. I think we all need to work on this priority. Like we want benefits to come back. So what are small actions that can have a big impact? Things that we were thinking about could be, as we were saying, actions that are leading to the development of a community protocol. Maybe they are preliminary things. Maybe they are like different, maybe it's not the whole process, it's a part of the process, but something that would be impactful. Like that's the question. Or could be actions after a community protocol has been developed. For example, you already have a community engaged, there is a community protocol developed. What do I need to do as an IPLC to unlock the benefits? Is it posting something different in the clearinghouse? Is it reaching out? Is it what it is? So that's the question that you need to wonder. Could be exchange of experiences and knowledge. We understand that there is still a lot of need for exchanging information and knowledge, so that could be something. Making community protocols easy to understand for users or in languages, that could be like a small action that maybe is impactful. For the countryside, maybe there could be some mapping of IPLCs and authorities. Could be developing ABS procedures and clarify the role of the CNA and the IPLCs. Like this dialogue. There could be dialogues between IPLCs and countries. There could be dialogues with users. Institutional support for IPLCs. You already have some existing institutions and you want to empower them better on IBS issues. That could be also an action. And we were mentioning transboundary cooperation, like if we collaborate with different countries, different IPLCs, that also would be good ideas. So now I'm just going to, this is some resources, they are there, I'm not going to enter into them, but for example, this, oh, I have this in Spanish, oh, it doesn't matter. There is the SIPA toolkit that includes some resources on community protocols and also dialogue between national focal points and community protocols that can be useful, and it's in all 6 UN languages. And it lists some of these videos. There is a toolkit. So there is a list of resources there that you can access and consult. I wanted to highlight a few things here as well. Besides that, there is this toolbox from Natural Justice about participatory methodologies and tools. So there is a wealth of resources out there in case you need resources. Sometimes it's a matter of using them and like knowing where they are. There is also some case studies on stakeholder participation for traditional knowledge. The CVD guidelines of MOTS Caxtal voluntary guidelines that include procedures, considerations for prior informed consent, free prior informed consent. So there is, these guidelines can be very useful as well and for developing further some of the concepts. From the country side, there is the learning module to establish ABS measures and that we develop with IDLO, and there is in different languages, and includes one on traditional knowledge as well that could be useful to consult if you don't know exactly what to do. And also even the national report format includes a list of things, the obligations that you have in case that is something that you would like to consult. And the national report analyzer and documents prepared for first assessment and review can also be very useful. So there is information out there. If you have questions, you can consult it and help develop more your projects and thoughts. So yes, I'm going to finalize now the presentation. So the last thing I wanted to mention is the ABS clearinghouse, because this is a key aspect of the last step, that is getting the users engaged. There is 2 ways of publishing information on community protocols and community protocols. So for the moment, most of you have published them as reference records. That means that they can be published by indigenous peoples and local communities. And there is already 39 community protocols there published. You can also consult them. And so information is there. It's like, I want to see what other people are doing. You have it. And this is very useful and can help also users to find the information. But there is also the possibility of publishing the information as a national record. In this case, would be the publishing authority of the country, the one that would include the community protocol as part of the country profile, as part of the measures. This act of publishing, of course, that has to be in agreement with the IPLCs, would also has like some implications of kind of a statement as well that this community protocol is part of the legal framework of the country. However, this function hasn't been used yet by countries. So if you're in a country attending this webinar and you want to check if you have community protocols in the country and you want to give them this legal recognition and this also a window for users to easily find it in the country profile of the country, you should publish it as a national record with the involvement and agreement, of course, of the IPLCs. So there is 2 ways of doing this. Is very important, as I say, is telling the users that this IPLC wants to engage on ABS to start with, and this is how you are doing it. So if the information is not there, you might be less easy to do this first engagement with users that might be willing to share benefits already. So consult the ABS clearinghouse for the resources, both in the community protocols. If you haven't published the existing community protocols, you can publish them as reference records. IPLCs, you can have just a count on the CBD and publish it yourself. Engage with your country as well if you want them to publish as a national record, and countries do that conversation. We need the conversation between IPLCs, countries, and users to happen to have benefit sharing. So this is the end of what I wanted to present today. And now would be more opening for questions. We have 10 minutes left of the webinar. I don't know, I haven't been checking the chat, so I don't know if there is any questions on the chat, but like, yeah, help me out there, and also raise your hand if you have a question, or post something in the chat.
There is one question, Bea.
Yeah.
What is an example of relevant organizations applying for projects that will benefit parties to the Nagoya Protocol? For example, can an organization based in a non-ODA party be part of a proposal if they're partnering with an IPLC organization or Nagoya Protocol party that is eligible to receive ODA?
Yeah, that's the idea. Basically, the question is that the benefits are on the ODA country or an IPLC. An IPLC. So any organizations that are based on a non-ODA country could partner with others but the benefits have to be for the ODA country. I think that was clear.
And then another question is, can a country apply for 2 thematic areas?
Yes, you can apply, you can make use of this. After, of course, we will have a selection criteria, and we will make sure that we need to do, the selection have to be geographically balanced. We have to take into account many things, but yes, please. And if you want to submit few projects as well and see what has more possibilities of getting the funding is also good. Give us work to do. Yeah, I see there. The recording and slides will be emailed and also posted on the website that I think it has been shared a few times. A government institution can work with an IPLC and apply together. Like, that's the thing. If there is joint work, you need to have like the agreement you have to have like an email agreeing to participate from the different organizations. And if a country is applying, they need the approval of the ABS National Focal Point. But please do joint work. I mean, it's good to have this dialogue. We cannot just working on silos on this issue. It's not taking us anywhere. Can a winner of the BioBridge small grant apply? Yeah, why not? I mean, I mean, there is no. The important part is that we come up with good, impactful projects that will benefit others also as well. You know, like we need good examples. We need to make this to showcase that we can do this and we can do it well. Let me see. Thank you. Any remaining question that I missed from the beginning on the chat? No, eh? We have still 5 minutes. Any other burning question? If not, as well, you can write us to the ABS Clearinghouse email if you question later. We really look forward to have beautiful projects on this area. Yeah, it seems a list of terms, like, I mean, there is a list of terms and a glossary, I think, in the MOXTAL voluntary guidelines, but what are you referring to? Sorry. Well, I don't think there was so many acronyms. I mean, we have ABS, IPLCs, that's indigenous peoples and local communities, MBSAPs, the National Biodiversity Strategies. I mean, sorry, sometimes the CBD crowd, we get used to our acronyms, but yeah, I don't know. I miss other. Yeah, the other 2 webinars, they are all going to be shared. The next couple of days, I think we hopefully will have them all in the website, I think. Okay. Matt, do you want to any final remarks, or we close the webinar with 4 minutes in advance?
No, I think you did a really good job of explaining everything. That was very clear. And again, email us at the clearinghouse email, absch@cbd.in, if you have any further questions, and we'll get back to you.
Well, I'm looking forward to all these great ideas. Don't be shy. And we hope, I mean, honestly, as well, we have hopes that maybe even if we are not able to fund many of these projects because we have a limited funding, we hope that we can try to later on maybe get additional one and move this area further. So even if you don't get selected at the beginning, we hope we can find more. And please help us on this. It's difficult to know how many projects because depends of the quantity. If we have many, I mean, depends if there is many of 20,000 or less of 50,000. So we don't have so much funding. So we have to limit expectations, but we hope we will be able with time to work more on this. Okay. So I think
Great.
with this, if you want to hear this in Spanish and French, you can always join, but I think it's the same. So thank you. And yeah, looking forward to hear your proposals.
All right.
Bye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Have a great day.